Republicans promised lower prices, more prosperity, a fresh start. What did we get? We got screwed.
That we're going to become so rich, you're not going to know where to spend all that money.
This will truly be the golden age of America.
Rich, golden age.
You paid your taxes every year. You worked to pay for your Social Security every year. You played by the rules. Now Republicans are changing the rules.
In his insane reaction to 4 parody advertisements from the Lincoln Project that he absolutely cannot ignore, Donald Trump's fixation with image, ego. The acclaim has never been more exposed than it is in this particular instance. Folks, this is not just another political hit piece or a late-night roast. This is a demolition that is on purpose, baby. These razor-sharp, surgical, and dripping with irony clips, which lasted for 32 seconds, did not only mock his policies or call out his lies. No, they progressed further. They weaponized his personality, his outbursts, and his Twitter meltdowns in all capital letters. And all of a sudden, the former president was not just losing an argument. He was beginning to lose control. Like a man whose brain suddenly stopped working in the middle of a sentence as he was staring at a sharpest stained mirror that wouldn't clap back loud enough. Truth Social is spiraling out of control. And all of a sudden, rather than discussing leadership or legislation, we are no longer discussing any of those topics. A full-blown identity crisis is unfolding before our own eyes, one collapse at a time, as President Trump frantically tries to defend an ego that is so fragile that it makes Elon Musk's most recent public relations effort appear stable in comparison, mostly due to the fact that, here's the kicker, the Lincoln Project is not just another anti-Trump group that is shouting from the sidelines. They have no intention of arguing over policy or rehashing previous scandals. Not at all, honey. They are come to humiliate you in order to deconstruct his narrative on a level that is really intimate. They do not pursue ideas in any way. They are looking for their identities instantaneously. The entire brand of Donald Trump, who is known as the self-made genius, the ultimate winner, and the disruptor, who invented winning but forgot how it felt as being. Attacked by individuals who are aware of the exact places where the fractures exist. And when you watch such parodies of advertisements, when you hear them twist his own words back at him, as if someone rewired his microphone to reality itself, what goes through your mind? From that moment on, every single line hits with more force than a congressional hearing. Every punchline is more incisive than a decision handed down by the Supreme Court. A moment later, guys, Trump isn't just flinching. He's actually doing something. Specifically, he is imploding. He is retweeting, yelling, and rewriting history once more as if he had Googled how to deport sarcasm in the time between legal briefings. Meanwhile, somewhere deep within Mar-a-Lago, he is pacing about screaming at paintings and wondering why nobody claps when he screams China anymore. If you were under the impression that this was merely another instance of satire, you would be mistaken. Stay with us, because once you witness how the Lincoln Project transforms Trump's greatest weakness, his inability to bear mockery, into their most destructive tactic to date, you will never again have the same perspective on political combat. The reason for this is that when your conception of leadership is less like governance and more like projection while wearing turtlenecks and believing in conspiracy theories about windmills stealing elections, you need to be careful. It never fails that someone will show up with a perfect move. It was the perfect moment and the appropriate amount of wrath that is encased in rationality. Trust me, honey, that scalpel has just become more razor-sharp than it has ever been. What a bang. That's it, fellow citizens. Not a chance. I mean, in the most chaotic way possible.
Trump's recession, inevitable. Trump's dumb tariffs, you pay them. Seen Trump's stock market lately? It's crashing.
A powerful head of state disagrees with a judge. He orders her arrested. His top law enforcement official declares that it's a warning to other judges. We will prosecute you.
Social Security is in chaos. Offices closed. Support staff slashed. Helplines turned.
They are looking for more than simply complaints about him. In light of his comments, it is reasonable to assert that they have everything under control. They want him to be enraged, walking around Mar-a-Lago with his phone in his hand, and going into all-caps rants on Truth Social at 1 o'clock in the morning. The fact that Trump despises public ridicule more than anything else is the most significant factor that works against him. His reputation for invincibility, wealth, and power has been his trademark for decades, and he has painstakingly developed it over the course of his career. In addition to selling shares that bore his name, the man also had his name affixed to structures and even created the phrase, "You're fired," into a widespread catchphrase. In spite of the fact that he has devoted his entire life to convincing the world that he is unbeatable, everything comes crashing down when someone shows him a mirror and draws attention to the most negative features of his personality. At precisely that moment, the Lincoln Project comes into play. They are well aware of Trump's anxieties because the Lincoln Project has a personal subscription to his therapy files, which means they have access to them. All aspects of his behavior, including his silly hand gestures, terrible body language, and concern with ratings, are being targeted. The previous advertising, such as the infamous Morning in America, got straight to the heart of the matter by depicting him as fragile, incompetent, and completely out of control. In addition, they criticized his response to the economic difficulties that occurred during CO. Following the viewing of the advertisement, it was difficult to take the issue seriously. And let's just say that Trump did not laugh it off. In addition, Co made fun of his peculiar balcony scene when he was admitted to the hospital for COVID. It was difficult to take it seriously due to the dramatic music and the imitation opera singing that was performed. The advertising was able to reach a significantly larger audience than it had initially been able to because of his public rants. But why does he express such a strong reaction to these advertisements in contrast to the conventional attack advertising, which rely on gloomy data and threatening voiceovers? The Lincoln Initiative takes a new approach. The Lincoln Project delivers these strikes with surgical accuracy, which is not to say that Trump has never been challenged before. Rather, it is the way in which these blows are delivered. By incorporating absurd comedy into their criticism, they are able to translate serious topics into humorous parodies that are memorable. It is not only detrimental to Trump's ego, but it also undermines his entire strong guy persona, which is damaged by the combination of humiliation and comedy. When they're finished with him, he is small, petty, and nearly silly. He is neither threatening nor dominant. Now, let's take a look at Trump's high psychological need for control and attention, which is one of the reasons why this strategy is so successful. According to the observations of numerous psychologists, Donald Trump thrives on attention regardless of whether it is positive or negative. As a result, his famous "any press is good" tactic was successful for him as a celebrity. This trait is turned against him by the Lincoln Project, which makes fun of him. This is the worst part of the situation. Trump is compelled to respond when their videos go viral because he is afraid of losing control of the narrative and because he would appear weak if he ignored it. Consequently, he is prone to falling for the bait on a regular basis. Give some thought to his earlier comments. Following the 45-second recording that criticized Donald's pettiness and became known as Shrinking Donald, it is reported that Trump spent hours scolding advisors about how unjust and harsh the audio was. After that, he launched a rant about his impeccable track record and blasted various internet news sources that had accused the Lincoln Project of engaging in fraudulent activities. Did he disagree with the claim that was made in the advertisement? Certainly not at all. Rather than that, he made certain that even more people talked about it, so giving it a second chance at life. A significant reason why the parody tactic employed by the Lincoln Project is so harmful is that they are well aware that this response is unavoidable. It would appear that these advertising were developed specifically with the intention of assisting Trump in living without paying rent. More than just pointing out that Trump might have made a mistake, they go beyond that. The fact that they employ comic timing and neon lights to plaster it all over the walls makes it impossible for him to pretend that it did not take place. With that being said, their method incorporates an additional layer. However, getting a response from Trump is not the sole objective.
Millions of Americans are losing money from their retirement plans as the stock market continues its downward trend.
They don't care.
His tax plan? Yours goes up, Elon pays nothing. You trusted him, believed in the myth.
You think he won't arrest elected officials who dare to stand up to him? Of course he will. You think you and your family are safe if you speak out against Trump? Intimidation, fear, arrests.
The Lincoln Project is not only making fun of him in their films, but they are also providing him with a microphone so that he may make even more fun of himself. It's not even unfair at all. It doesn't matter what, he always plays with it. It is essential to keep in mind that Trump has spent years portraying himself as a man who is capable of giving as well as receiving. Despite the fact that some people may argue that the technique employed by the Lincoln Project is particularly harsh, it has come to my attention that when the punches are this hilarious and focused, the giving and taking does not balance out as effectively as it could. The question that needs to be answered, however, is why Trump keeps falling into this trap again and over again. In your opinion, he must now have a better understanding of how this cycle operates. Stay tuned because in the following section, we will provide an in-depth explanation of why Trump, despite the fact that he is aware of the truth, is unable to resist falling for the ploy. Despite the fact that Donald Trump's emotions are unpredictable and unpredictable, the Lincoln Project has managed to turn them into its most effective weapon. Trump is unable to ignore a direct assault, regardless of how insignificant or childish it may appear to be. This is something that he simply cannot seem to accomplish. Just like a well-oiled hand, it is possible for predictability to be a strength. However, in the case of Trump, it has become a vulnerability, and the Lincoln Project is well aware of how to capitalize on this weakness. In the event that you make a negative statement about him, his reaction will almost certainly be negative. Whether it's his purported success in business, his large and appealing ratings, or simply the way he stands on stage surrounded by applause, Trump's fixation with control and attention, particularly when it comes to public criticism, feels like a direct danger to the image he has meticulously created for himself. Trump's entire persona screams, "Look at me and only see a winner." This cannot be said more about him. Ironically, when the Lincoln Project makes fun of him, they're not just questioning his policies. They are also targeting the core of who he is. This is a double-edged sword. Incorrectness is not being leveled against him in any way. They are unmistakably referring to him as a loser. As a result of the fact that it is the kind of insult that he simply cannot ignore, he invariably falls for the bait. A more in-depth examination of the ways in which the Lincoln Project ensnares him is warranted. No nuance is present in their marketing. They are intended to provoke, and they do so by employing a cutting sense of humor, creating imagery that is absurd and providing just enough factual context to make the attacks evident. Nevertheless, it is essential that these advertisements continue to be distributed to the general public once they have been made available to the public. In addition, they are designed to strike Trump in a manner that is both severe and personal. Their heightened tone compels him to answer, since there is a possibility that remaining silent could be interpreted as a display of weakness, which is a signal that he is never expecting to give. On the other hand, he responds immediately, which is exactly what he does, which results in the noise that he is seeking to hush becoming even more audible. When Trump lashes out, the action is so predictable that it gives the impression of being hilarious. Prior to his storming onto Truth Social, he frequently composes one of his signature illogical statements on his computer. Instead of opposing the advertising, he makes statements that are filled with insults such as losers and failing Lincoln projects, which result in millions of more viewers. As an illustration, consider the time when the Lincoln Project placed advertisements close to Mar-a-Lago. Martha Cotton, a political analyst, noted how their strategy taps into Trump's greatest fear, which is that he would eventually become irrelevant. Trump's outraged reaction, in which he labeled the commercials as vile, did nothing but indicate that they had achieved their goal. The Lincoln Project does not make fun of his viewpoints in the same way that traditional opponents would. Instead, it takes a more personal approach, turning his greatest fear of being considered as insignificant, foolish, or little into a recurring comedy. At this point, the feedback loop starts to take effect. The comment that Trump makes will surely be picked up by the media once he has already responded with phrases such as "Trump goes off on Lincoln Project advertising" and "Trump condemns spoof assault." The headlines are bursting with phrases like these. In order to ensure that the advertisements reach audiences that are significantly larger than their initial scope, news outlets display the advertisements in their entirety during segments. In spite of the fact that Trump's angry posts were intended to denigrate the Lincoln Project as a failure, they instead serve as completely free advertisement. The commercials are able to return and become viral once more with each public outburst, which provides the Lincoln Project with the opportunity to avoid having to pay any additional money for additional airtime. In this particular instance, the Lincoln Project is nearby holding the matches and laughing. But it is comparable to seeing someone feed a fire while simultaneously attempting to put it out. That is the situation. Here is one more thing to take into consideration. One of the most significant contributors to this trap is social media. The advertising for the Lincoln Project are examples of the bizarre and amusing content that is disseminated through social media platforms such as Twitter, which take advantage of any chance this presents. It is already too late for Trump to comment and identify the videos as fake news. They have already entered the meme ecosystem, where they are gaining momentum on their own. In the meanwhile, short videos are remixed by the creators of TikTok. Users of Twitter and Instagram both make snarky remarks to their respective platforms. The advertisement's reach is multiplied by a factor of 10 with each joke, meme, and sarcastic post. All of this is a direct consequence of Trump's incapacity to take responsibility for his actions. To a certain extent, the fact that he is unable to maintain his silence is evidence that the Lincoln Project has a good understanding of his mental state. They are conscious of the fact that whenever they make fun of him, he feels obligated to respond, since any silence from him is interpreted as acceptance of the situation. His responses only serve to heighten the ridicule, and the more he reacts, the more desperate he appears to be. He will lash out in wrath, making